There we go. And just like that, we are live for Triple T number 79. Happy 4th of July, 2023. For everybody watching from America, happy Independence Day. For my friends in the UK, happy Treason Day. Glad we got over that little disagreement. My name is TJ Zebel. I lovingly refer to myself as a professional problem solver with the disclaimer, no, I don't know everything, I don't claim to. I just have this fun way of being able to ask questions, drill down to help people find the answers to their questions, help them resolve their issues. And if I can't find the answer, I have lots of people that I can refer to, look around for, help you find the answers you're looking for. I do have a website, which is thetswb.com, the tall skinny white boy.com. Yes, that is what it stands for. I've actually had people question me on that a number of times. I do offer a free 30-minute consultation. And that is your time with me to ask me any questions, look for any answers to any challenges, issues you may have. I've helped people with depression, anxiety, phobias. I also do corporate coaching, work with CEOs, COOs, all the C's and all the above, because I found out they're human too. I also work with professional athletes for performance enhancement and about 27 other professions that I've done. But enough about me. For those of you watching live on YouTube, thank you for joining. Hi, Mom. Yes, she gets to watch, she watches, and it's a blessing for me. And for all of you that are joining in or watching this recording for the first time, thank you so much for investing your time. All of the standard YouTube practices, please hit the subscribe, ring the bell, leave comments, good or bad. I can handle it. I just like to hear what's going on. If there's something that you like, let me know. If there's something that you would like explained deeper in future Triple T's, let me know. Other than that, standard format here is for the first hour, I will talk on 3 topics I come up with each week. Second hour, we open it up, open mic, open platform. If you guys have any topics or any questions that you would like addressed, that's where you ask those, and we let everybody on the call answer first, and then I answer last because I enjoy learning as well. But I also like to start off the night with, does anybody have any ahas, epiphanies, things they'd like to share from the last week? And here comes Savo. Awesome.
I'll jump in and share something.
Please, thank you.
Just something that's been a recurring theme is the importance of reaching out for help when you need it. It doesn't matter if it's something dumb and little or something that should be that or something big. First of all, you might be surprised how much you need it. And second of all, you might be surprised how quick people are to help you when you ask for it.
Yay! Ironically, that's one of the topics for the night.
Hadn't even noticed that yet.
Yeah. Hey, Savo, good to see you. Anything you want to share from the last week? Other than it looks like you got out and had some fun and enjoyed life. And there he goes. Well, and for those of you that are watching the recording, there's more than 2 people on here. The recordings, ironically, only show those that have their camera on. So I've had a few people look at me while I'm talking to ghosts on the call, and I'm like, well, no, they were there. They just didn't have their camera on. Yeah, there we go. So, looks like we might as well dive right into the three topics. The three topics that I picked for this week: independence, aging and friends, and reaching out. And I think Holly offered the perfect segue for us to reverse the order and dive right into the reaching out. And I think anybody in our industry has dealt with people that will wait to reach out for so many things. Afraid to ask for help, hate to ask for a favor, until they absolutely positively have to have no other option. And I've had a few friends that I found out that they were going through some stuff. They needed some help that I could have easily helped them with. And I asked them, like, why didn't you just ask? Well, I hate to bother people. And I said, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been able to help somebody and it really helped them out? Well, yeah. How'd that make you feel? Well, I felt good. Yeah, it feels good to help people, right? Well, yeah. Stop robbing people of the ability to enjoy helping you. It's okay to ask. Remember how good you felt when you were able to help other people. Give people the opportunity to feel that themselves by helping you. And sometimes those of us that are just called to help people, we know that we're probably not going to even wait. We just show up and start helping. And then, of course, the look on their face like, oh gosh, thanks for helping. Well, you looked like one of those people that might have a little problem asking for help. Yeah, I hate asking people for help. And I found when you start diving down into some of the underlying reasons for this, it all comes down, programming from a young age. You're not supposed to ask people for stuff. Or asking for help showed a sign of weakness. Or all sorts of limiting beliefs that keep people from being able to ask for help. I'm even the person in the stores, and I those of you that know me, I'm in Home Depot is almost like my second home. I've thought about getting my mail delivered there because it'd be easier, and I've gotten to where I can recognize that look on people's faces. They're in the aisle and they're like, oh, and I got that overwhelmed, and I'm like, I just start asking them questions, digging down to values and criteria. Okay, out of curiosity, are you working on a project for this or that? And I help them out, and pretty soon they're like, oh, thank you so much. How long have you worked here? Like, well, I don't really work here. I just like helping people. You did this? You don't even work here? Like, no? Wow. And when I had my maintenance company, I got more business off of providing free help in Home Depot than, well, I didn't advertise, it was all word of mouth, but I was like, I didn't do this to try and gain anything other than you looked like you could use some help, and I had the knowledge and the time and the ability to help you. The other thing that I wanted to bring this up on for our people is, and Kevin, is it okay if the other people don't, or the recordings, they don't see the
Yeah,
comments?
yeah, go ahead.
And Kevin shared that I've been disabled with MS since 2011. I've been helped so much by others, so I have a hard time asking for help. And then, so is this resonating with you, Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember, people love to help other people. Absolutely, and it's interesting when I teach my class on sales, especially like cold calls and stuff. When you go into a place where like Sam's Club or Costco, there's always the cell phone seller or the solar panel seller and all the above, and they're like, "Hey, excuse me, real quick. Hey, what cell phone company do you have?" And I'm like, "How are your numbers?" Because most people, they smell that sales, that hungry, desperate sales tactic as soon as they see you. I said, why don't you try something different? Try this for a chance. Excuse me, could you help me for just a quick second? I'm new to the area and I'm trying to get a little feel for the market around here. I'm just curious, who's your cell phone provider? And you don't have a tablet, you have a piece of paper with some options and some scratch marks that you're keeping a tally. You're not looking for, hey, well, can I get your phone number? Can I get your email? Can I send you a whole bunch of you did? Can I really torque you off and call you every night around supper time? And the few salespeople that have decided they were going to try something different than what they had pounded into their head by the trainers for the company, two of them actually reached out to me and went, dude, my numbers went sky high. I said, yeah, because it wasn't a sale. It was, could you help me? I'm not here to sell you something. I'm looking for information. If I have a way that I could save you some money, would you be interested? Would you want to hear it from me? Echo Talk, values and criteria. Yes, it's a different approach, but man, is it effective in this day and age of everybody trying to approach you to pop a buck. Now back to reaching out. It doesn't have to be about sales or anything like that. It's again remembering if a client comes to you, that's reaching out at a level where most people won't do that. Dr. David Snyder is very famously quoted for saying, people come to hypnotists because they can't find witch doctor in the yellow pages. Most of them have tried pretty much everything, and they're at the point where we're the last resort, which is sad, but at least they're getting more accepting of our industry. Any comments, questions, ahas, epiphanies on this so far? Is this good stuff?
Nobody else can say something, I'll say something. I feel like I nonstop talking, but So true. Just going to add a couple things too that, first of all, remember when you're asking for help, that might be the exact thing that person needed to help with that day to help them with something. But also I'd say too, one of the things I've learned is have multiple people in your support system. And then also make sure that you're not creating bread of shame situations as well, because you're willing to give back as well. But yeah, the multiple people, because you never know, maybe that one person's having personal crisis and they can't respond to you, but they don't feel guilty because they know you have multiple people you can turn to. So it's always helpful. You know, I'm blessed to have people all over the world. If it's the middle of the night, I can talk to somebody in Australia. If I need somebody local who can help me out, I've got those people in my group. I've got my go-to people who have special skill sets that can help with certain things. And it's, yeah, the best way to do it is to have multiple people so that you can go to somebody who is able to help you in that moment.
Awesome points. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, there are times where the universe will lead you to somebody who is they're kind of going through the same thing. And in helping you, they find the ability to help themselves. And be open to that. Both sides. Sometimes you're the person, you know, the old saying is sometimes you're the Louisville Slugger and sometimes you're the ball. Doesn't matter. Somebody's got to play the game. And so don't be afraid. And that's part of why I constantly tell people, keep figuring out how to meet people, build your tribe, expand your tribe, get to know as many people as possible. Even for the introverts, it's a good thing. It's a little more challenging, but they're out there. But when you start learning the keys of communication, you know, those of you that have been around Planet TJ long enough know that I'm constantly hammering on what I call the trifecta. Echo talk, 3 magic questions, values, and criteria. When you get them down, communication, walking up to people, talking to strangers becomes almost effortless. And when it's effortless, it becomes pleasurable. And there are so many amazing people out there that are just floating around, and especially with what we've been going through the last 3 years, people want to talk to people. So many of them have lost friends and family because of political views and views on all the stuff that we know that we're talking about, that we're not talking about, that we know what we're talking about, but we're not, you know what I mean. That meeting new people gives you the opportunity to not care a whole lot about letting them know where you stand on certain views. Because if it's not a fit, you didn't know them 5 minutes ago, yesterday, or last week. What do you care? But you'll be amazed at who the universe will put you in alignment with. Mondays are my normal errand day. It's my day to get off the property, and I go grocery shopping. And yes, I'm the husband that does the grocery shopping and the cooking and all that stuff because I love that. But I've got some friends now that I've made in different stores, but on top of that, I've run into enough people that even though they didn't follow up, we're not chit-chatting, for 5-10 minutes, we had a great conversation. Yesterday at Home Depot, there I was, saw this young couple, small child and another on the way, and they're looking at at some towel racks and stuff like that. And so I started asking questions. Turns out they're from South Africa, but her family is from the States. He does construction down there, and the price of faucets and all of that stuff is so high where they live, it's actually cheaper for them to have the in-laws buy it and ship it to South Africa by far. They save about 40% or more by having it bought here and shipped to South Africa. And the only way I found out, I was willing to reach out and offer some help. It was kind of cool. We had some really cool conversations. So that's reaching out. Before we swap topics, anybody got any other questions, ahas, epiphanies, things you'd like to share? Bueller, going once, going twice. Yes, Sabo.
Hi TJ, hi everybody. Good to see you guys. Earlier, when I was first joining I had some technical issues, so I couldn't hear you. But now I'm in, and I would like to say that one of the things that always works is thinking about yes response when you approach someone, whether it's business or personal, or you're looking to maybe get to know someone and see if they're the right person for you, if you're looking for relationship or anything else, is having in mind that if you come and you meet someone and you say, hey, you look like an interesting person, they can say no to that. It would be ludicrous. And you slowly, it's like a compounding suggestions. And 3 magic questions is a great formula, because it also allows you to comment on and always have that in your mind about the environment. You see, if it's a beautiful day outside, or if it's just really hot, like right now, the way it is here in California, it's just, I've been inside all day, just going crazy. It's just so hot, you can't really go anywhere. But you say, it's so hot, such a hot day, or any simple stuff like that will still make people agree. And it's going to make it a lot easier to have that flow for guard to go down, because unconsciously when people agree, they're in alignment with you. And so those are the things when you come and you meet someone, and of course then offering help is always, I feel, it comes back. Like, it's so simple yet so powerful that whatever you give it comes back to you multiplied. And so it's a great topic, TJ. Thank you for sharing.
Karma is always watching. I always tell people that. They're like, "You're so lucky," and da 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 da. I'm like, but I like to help people, and the universe keeps track of that. Yes, Kevin. Reciprocity. What a concept. Global wide. So if we don't have any other additions to that, we can move on to the next one, which of course we'll go back to the first one, Independence, which I picked out obviously for Independence Day here in the States. Like I joked, we got some friends over in the UK. Happy Treason Day. Glad we got over that little disagreement. But it's not so much about that. For me, especially for the community that most of us are in, it's also about teaching people about independence from energies, past beliefs, limiting beliefs, all the above. it's sad in a way, the amount of people that don't believe that they can move past stuff that they're dealing with, anxiety, phobias, depression. And one of the things that I've learned with the clients that all the clients I've worked with, is teaching them the tools. I teach them, those with anxiety, the most effective tool that I've found is teaching them what anxiety is, what it isn't, how to detect it, how to transform it, how to be able to turn it into something usable. And it's funny because when I tell them that, fear, anxiety, and excitement are all the exact same energy. And when you realize that, when you feel what you used to label anxiety showing up, you can go, wow, why am I having all this excess energy? Well, what if it wasn't anxiety? What if it was excitement? What would it feel like if I was excited? And all of a sudden they have all this energy and it's usable. The other thing I teach them is nothing means anything until you give it a label. And that gives a lot of people independence, because now you're in control of deciding what you want to call it. It also independence for smokers. There are so many ways that people in our industry offer up independence to people every day, whether it be through past life regression, future pay, all the tools that we learn are ways of helping us find people who have reached out to get the independence from the things that were holding them back. Any ahas, epiphanies, things you'd like to share on that concept? Come out of trance.
I'll go. One of the things. Oh, go ahead.
I was mentioning that because I have, in the last several months, I've been working with doing transformational breathwork coaching. And in the training for that, it was the difference between excitement and fright or fear, or being just anxious. The difference between that is a controlled breath. Because when you're anxious, you're doing that all in the upper chest breathing, oftentimes through the mouth, and you start to get into that freak out, highly sympathetic oriented nervous system. But then if you go and modify your breathing to do slow, deep breathing and going into the belly and the diaphragm, as opposed to the upper chest, that's more tied to the parasympathetic. And so if you feel yourself and you're framing it as, oh, I'm anxious, I'm freaked out, I don't know what's going on, to just take note of, what is your breathing like? And are you hyperventilating? Are you over breathing? Are you breathing more into the chest? And then just go and consciously modify that to where you're slowing the breath, going to the diaphragm. And I mean, you can, just at any point, just take, throughout the day, I'll go and randomly check my breathing and take a deep breath, slow it, and be intentional and conscious of that. And just being aware of that helps whenever I get kind of riled up and start to spin out in my head. to say, oh, it's not just my head, it's actually in my body. And I can be a lot more relaxed. And that's all in the power of my breath, and it's, the diaphragm and the lungs are the largest organ system that's at the intersection between the conscious and autonomic nervous system. And so by consciously modifying our breathing, we have that control. It's like a joystick for our nervous system.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Kevin.
Very, very powerful. Yes. I'll also jump in kind of on a different note. One of the things I think that when it comes to independence, freedom, that we have to remember is that freedom always comes with responsibility. So it's not freedom from responsibility, it's freedom with responsibility. And once again, it can be scary, but what is scary? It's awesome. It's exciting. So reframe that and recognize that that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else got anything they want to share on that? All right. Well, we're moving much faster than we usually do because normally two topics take us right to the top of the hour, so we're flying right through. That leaves us with aging and friends. And this topic was one that I'd picked for last week, and we didn't get around to it because it was number 3. And I'll admit, I didn't write notes on it. It was a concept that I had heard. My wife had talked about. She had heard on a podcast, and so I'll do my best to recollect the full storyline. But what it came from was a young lady whose father was a college professor, went to a party and got into a car. They were going to another party and realized that the driver was way too inebriated to be driving and asked him to just stop, let her off, da-da-da. Didn't happen. They got into a horrible, horrific wreck. She got absolutely busted up. And while she was in the hospital recovering and having to learn to walk again, things of that nature, she was getting depressed and getting angry, which, understandable, what we would consider understandable states. And her dad said, well, then while you're laying here, do something. Take a college course. Well, I'm not gonna do your course. He said, honey, I don't care what you do. Take something. And I believe she decided to take psychology. And so Dad went and took the course for her and recorded all of the sessions, all the teaching, and then brought the tapes to her to listen to and do the work. And in doing that, basically they both took a new course. Well, she was starting to get angry that her recovery wasn't going fast enough and was complaining to the nurses. And thank goodness she had a smart nurse who said, why don't you talk to some of the older ladies that are going through the same thing you are, hip replacement and having to learn how to work with things like that. And she was like, okay, fine, whatever. And she found out that the older ladies that were going through the same type of stuff had a much more positive outlook. And she was trying to figure out, like, how can you be so positive about this? And one of the ladies said, I don't have as much time as you, supposedly, as far as I know. So it's easier for me to just choose to be positive because time goes by regardless. Time goes by whether you're angry or you're happy or you're sad. Time won't stop regardless of how you feel. I just know that my days go better when I'm in a better mood. And she started talking to them more and found out that a lot of their friends had moved on or passed on through the years. And she was like, well, why don't you go out and make more friends? And the majority of them said, at this age, we would rather have fewer quality friends than just a high number of friends. Because we don't have that much time left to try and figure out what they are. And so we hang on to the good friends. And we have acquaintances. And it struck me that it seems to ring true, especially for people that haven't learned communication styles like the things that we teach here on Triple T and other places. That my mother, hi Mom, was in the assisted care industry on and off since I was a junior in high school. And got to deal with the older, frail population. Even though her aunt was the same age or older than a lot of the people in the assisted living place, she was the healthy go-getter. I mean, Aunt Lil, bless her, man, it's funny. If Mom was on this call, she'd verify. There'd be times I'd call her and go, so what you been up to? Oh, yesterday I took Aunt Lil down to St. Cloud, which is an hour away, to do some shopping. I said, oh, so you're recovering? She's like, oh, because yeah, they'd go to the big shopping mall and Aunt Lil was full throttle. Yep. Check this, look at this, look at this. But Aunt Lil also had a lot of friends. Aunt Lil, I don't think would have survived very long in an assisted care facility. She had friends, she had things to do, she had places to go. And so the reason I brought up the aging and friends and this topic, it's just important for us to teach our parents and our elders these ways to meet people, talk with people, and create new tribes when we have to. So that they can continue to move forward. You know, I've run into people that have had to pick up and move multiple times. And it's interesting, they almost seem to be on far sides of the spectrum. either they've moved a lot and they just said, fine, screw it. I'm independent. I don't need to know a lot of people. I just, I'll probably end up moving in another year or two, whatever. Or they're the opposite, where they go, everywhere I go, I get to meet people and I meet new friends, and they can talk to anybody about anything, anytime, anywhere, because they're just interested in people. And I also got to meet some of those in the assisted living facilities that were only there because of medical shortcomings. And they were the ones that knew all the residents, all the nurses, everybody, because that was how they had sculpted their life to be. Strangers were just friends they hadn't met yet. And most of them, regardless of the condition of the body they were in, were able to live a pretty happy life, even in the facility, because of their mental state. And so I challenge all of us on this call and all of the people watching this recording, decide what a stranger is to you. Learn communications, learn how to meet people, hold conversations, learn the trifecta. If you don't know what that is, please reach out. I've got recordings on my YouTube channel. You can look it up. But if you have any limiting beliefs, if you're shy, if you're scared, all the above, something happened in the past, you have a hard time approaching people, this community right here is where you will find people that will help you with that. Wow, this night is rolling really quick. Anybody got any ahas, epiphanies, things they'd like to share on that topic? Because we're rolling quick. You guys are pretty quiet tonight. Are we going to be able to finish the first hour early? That hasn't happened in quite a while. Well, then I may have to bring up some new stuff. Trust me, I've got plenty of stuff. Comments, I usually save these for the second hour, but, somebody actually sent me some questions on here. So, got some questions for you guys if you would chime in. When a close friend leaves your life, what are some ways that you or other people have worked through that, out of curiosity? I've had that happen many times with all the traveling that I did. One of the things that I learned about it was a simple statement, a quote, that different people are put into our lives for different amounts of time. You will have people that come in for a very short time for a very specific purpose. You'll have some that will stick around for 5-10 years and fade away. And then you have the people that it doesn't matter how long you've known them or how long you haven't had the ability to talk to them. As soon as the phone rings, it could be 10 years, and you pick up right where you left off. But we have to remember that some people get so hurt when people move on. And I think that adds to limiting beliefs and interior beliefs that don't necessarily have to be there once they understand that not everybody was put in our life to be permanently there. Any comments on that? Hello?
I'll definitely agree with that. I'm looking back on my life too, and I think that how many times have I hurt myself and other people because I just thought this is a good person, we have a good history, we need to stay in each other's lives, and kind of going back to Lillian Bridges' analogy of the kayaks. Their kayaks being called somewhere else, mine's being called somewhere else, doesn't mean we don't still care about each other, doesn't mean we don't still respect each other, but we're and often it's a growth thing too. And it's not necessarily one person's growing faster than the other, or it's just you're growing differently.
Yep.
And so you need to have different life experiences, and you need to stretch, and you need to meet new people. And that's a good thing for both of you. And the loving thing to do is to support that and respect it and reframe it, make sure what meaning you're taking from it. This doesn't mean they're bad. This doesn't mean I'm bad. It doesn't mean the relationship was bad. It just means it's time to move on, which is what I need to work on more. But
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And on top of that, I've often said that I love the quote, if you're the smartest person in the room, it's time to change rooms. We're meant to grow. One of the things I liked from the personal help, the personal growth industry, whatever, where they say if you're not growing, you're dying. And that sounds pretty harsh, but I like the bottom line context of it. Keep learning, keep growing, keep finding ways to improve yourself. And in doing so, there may be times that you have to move on from a tribe. And that doesn't mean that they're the problem. It simply means that you've outgrown them. And I've got some friends that, I don't like to, I'm not going to say that I'm a massive intellectual, but I've got some friends that they just chose not to grow. And I can have a conversation with them. It's great to see them, but it doesn't take long before I'm like, we got to move on. And Kevin brought up a great concept, or a great question, said, would you speak to the difference between thinking positive, aka fake it till you make it, and just lying to yourself and to others? And I think one way of looking at it would be the idea of the software hardware approach to looking at your body. Saying that you're a great basketball player. You're going to be a great basketball player. Well, that can be both a software and a hardware issue. If you're, I'm 6'4", everybody expected me to play basketball and be in sports. I didn't have the interest. But if you're 5'4" and you keep telling yourself you're going to be an NBA superstar, I'm not saying you can't be. That may be one of your little super parts. If you're uber good, you can dribble around through everybody's legs, but chances are you're probably not going to make it that far. And so there's that part. The other part I've addressed a couple of times, where understanding questioning affirmations and realizing that your subconscious is set in place to research all the things that you say against what you've already proven to yourself to believe, whether they're right or wrong, limiting or helpful. And you can sit there all day long and tell yourself, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. I'm just going to fake it until I become rich, and I am rich. And you open up your bank account and your subconscious goes, no, liar. And it may end up turning around and sabotaging you to make sure that you don't change. Stick with familiarity. When you finally catch on to that, when might it become lying to yourself? And part of it may be, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, but I spend all day on social media doing nothing but looking at pictures, and then at night I Netflix and you know, if you're not working towards the goal, you can fake it all you want. Statements without actions or deadlines are merely dreams. I get a lot of people that, well, this is what I want to do. I'm like, cool, awesome. So what have you done so far to head towards that goal? Well, I decided that's what I want to do. Okay, you decided, but what have you done other than deciding? Well, don't I just have to send it out into the universe and it'll just happen? Not so much. Not so much. You're going to have to help the universe out a little bit on a few of those things. You have to become the person that deserves the thing you're asking for. And deserves probably isn't the right word or the right label. But if you're asking the universe to make you an NBA superstar, but you don't get on the basketball court more than 3 hours a week, the universe is probably going to have a hard time delivering that dream to you. Yes, Sabo.
So asking universe to become basketball superstar and maybe saying that affirmation in a positive way, and if you're only 5'4", that's most likely not gonna work. Positive affirmations don't work in a way in which they're usually described, but also there is I like to make this distinction. When you say a positive affirmation or when a person says it, then one thing that happens is there is a feeling that's inside, maybe in conflict with that. And so I really like to pay attention to what happens inside after we say what the affirmation, something we want to accomplish. So now the next question here is, if you do want to become a superstar, you don't really want to become a superstar so that you can be a superstar, but because of the feeling that brings you when you become a superstar. So if the person that you work with answers that question, they go, well, I want to feel very important and significant. Now the question is, how else can you get that feeling? And so doing affirmation is always a great opportunity to do a little therapy on yourself or the other person. I also found that sort of work. Well, I think I'm just going to stop here because it goes.
No, you don't have to stop. This is good stuff, brother. This is why we do this.
Yeah. So, but basically, a metaphor. If the problem, people create imaginary problems. They don't know the reason why they do things is the feeling. So they create these problems of like so they're so contextual. So they're trying to solve the context, and the mind, their own mind, is presenting this problem because they're afraid to face the real problem. And so now they're working here fighting with something, but because like maybe they're just giving themselves a bad symbol, a bad metaphor. And so now what do? Well, you give them a better metaphor, you work with the metaphor. But I found when you do say affirmations, things that you want, things will come up. As they come up, it's a great opportunity to deal with them. And the most powerful affirmations I found is the ones that you came up with when you change your physiology and you change the question. You go, why am I feeling so fucking amazing today? And you go, there's hundreds reasons why. So yeah, changing physiology, asking the question, that's probably the best way to start with him.
Yay! Appreciate that.
Loving all these answers.
Go ahead.
Oh, I could jump in a minute. I just mostly wanted to say I was loving the answers so far.
Anybody else? Any comments they would like to share on that with 4 minutes left in the first hour?
I guess I'll jump in since I did jump in. So one of the things too that I think about is a lot of it's intent, and the fake it till you make it. There's the one version where you say, I am committed to this. This is important to me. And I'm going to become the person who's capable of having this. So I'm going to experiment and play around until I find what that means, what that looks like, compared to I'm doing this from a place of ego because I think I'm supposed to want it. And I don't really care that much, but I'm just going to lie to everybody around me without doing the work and make it sound like it's good, whether it's for me or whether for it's people around me. And I know that's kind of what was said before, but, it's just, what is my intent? Is my intent real, or is my intent just very superficial?
Absolutely. Go ahead,
Holly, I'm so glad you brought it up. I love that, because one of the things that occurred to me as you were speaking is something that I have not read this, but it just occurred to me that imagine if you can just say to yourself something like, I am gonna fake it until I make it, but in a way in which I'm gonna be so playful to where I'm gonna play with this state. I want this neurology to become so familiar to me to where I'm just gonna, it's like a game, okay? And then yet you become so familiar with it, but yet I like what you said, Holly, you always have great insights, like not coming from a place of ego, not coming from like, okay, now I'm this, whatever, this person that you're not. And then, because if you are coming from the place of ego, it's even more dangerous to develop a conflicting belief that that you're something that you're not. And so then we have more issues to work with, because every technique we do in hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive behavior therapy, psychotherapy, we bring people to wholeness. We bring people back into the integrity, And when we have this, I'm something that I'm not, we have obviously conflict that's just parting out as you go. And that's making a lot harder to get to your destination.
And I just had a squirrel remind me of, I got to give a shout out to Seth Breedbart, who I overheard telling somebody, well, can you pretend to do this, to be able to do this? And then when you realize you're doing it, just stop pretending. And I went, that is pretty profound. And it's amazing what people can pretend they can do. Just like in my class that I put on called Identity Management University, aka IMU, I tell people, if you were an actor or an actress, could you leave this room and come back in and show me what the person that you want to be like would look like, act like, and talk like? And it's amazing the things that I've witnessed. I like to reference one class that I taught had a pretty quiet, soft-spoken Asian lady because of the upbringing, and she wanted to be more outspoken and be able to enter the room with energy and all this stuff. And as I walked her through it, I finally said, okay, I want you to leave the room and I want you to come back in and show me exactly what you're talking about. She left the room, she came back in and she's still walking. And I said, hi. She goes, well, the person that would do this. I went, no. Don't describe them. Go back out and then come back in and pretend to be them. Show me. I want to see what they would do. This little Asian lady came back in. She was 6 inches taller, took up about this much more room. Hello, everybody. How are you? Good to see you today. Everybody in class is like, and and I'm talking to her and I'm just having a conversation. I'm like, how was your day? My day was awesome. I'm like, awesome. And all of a sudden she looks around and she goes, what? I said, all the ingredients were already inside you. Everything was there. You just have to be that person as much as you want until you no longer have to worry about being the old person. What? I said, yeah. You had no problem coming in here and blowing the doors off. And so for the rest of the class, we made, every time she tried to shrink back down into the old person, we were like, it. So that brings us to the top of my hour. Before I switch gears, anybody have any comments, epiphanies, ahas on the last few items we talked about before we switch over?
I like how you tell stories, TJ. I like how you deliver embedded suggestions, and I like what you do, man.
Thank you. And for those of you that are joining for the first time or watching a recording for the first time, it's a holiday weekend. I know people have got a lot on their mind. There's a lot of people that are out with friends and family, and it makes me appreciate you guys that showed up even more. And thank you for the kind comments. Thank you, Jade. I appreciate that. So before I have to tell more stories, second hour, this is your guys' hour. This is your time to bring up topics, questions, things that you would like to have anybody on the panel offer up their ideas. And then if I've got any squirrels delivering answers, I will bring mine up last. So who's got something for us? Really?
Okay, I'm curious for everyone who's willing to chime in. I'm discovering that the way people learn to trust people is different by the person. So what are the factors, just looking back on the people that you've trusted over the years, the people, and also just the facts that you've trusted over the years, that sort of thing? What factors do you believe you rely on to know who is trustworthy, what stories are trustworthy, what facts are trustworthy, and what stories, people, facts, etc., are not trustworthy?
Great topic. Okay, kids, it's your turn to answer first, and then I've got some stuff for this. Yep, come on, Salo.
I'll be the test rat for. I think Polly's doing research. She's asking us, what makes you trust? Okay, well, here's what happened to me. I had this guy who worked for me, a mechanic, and he had very similar goals and values in life, but yet he was not punctual, yet he was not trustworthy. He was doing martial arts. He liked off-roading. He liked a lot of things, or just cars in general, since that was his profession. He's a car mechanic. He would go to the gym and lift weights and do a lot of things that I do. And when he came for an interview, he even had a tattoo similar to my tattoo. There were so many things that were matching and they were creating rapport easily. And once I hired the guy, I later discovered that he was on meth. And Jade knows this story, in fact. And he was heavily on some heavy drugs, and he was taking so much meth that his dopamine was going so high that he started to lose long-term memory. And long story short, it was just really bad for my business. However, that guy overstayed with all the benefits, where I would let other guys go. I gave him chance after chance after chance, and he, as I said, like, he stayed for another 3 months until he got in trouble. He got in trouble because he was on drugs and he did something outside. He never caused any issues here inside of my place. Partially, I think he respected me and all that, but yet he did cause a lot of problems in my life, personally, professionally, and I had him there. Now the moral of this story is that rapport is what created trust. So we are emotional creatures, and when we go through the world, and when we, like Dr. David says, when we find someone we like, someone like us, we are delighted, and then we fight tooth and nail to keep that. So, and there was, there's a lot of differences. I am a person, if you go into meta programs, the way I operate, I sort by similarity and not by differences. So maybe that's just me, but let's see who else has experience so that Holly, you can do your research.
Awesome, good stuff. Who else has something for us? Anybody? They're all hiding. Well, I'll throw this out there. There's a great book by Stephen R. Covey called The Speed of Trust. Highly recommend it. Have you guys read it? Definitely go out and there's a lot of different ways that trust is given. There's transferable trust. I know him, he knows that person. I trust him, so that person gets a portion of the trust I give to this person. There's what Savo brought up, the similarities trust. Backgrounds, where'd you grow up, things of that nature. The more you have in common, the easier it is to build trust. There's also authoritative transfer of trust. People wearing uniform can tell you something. A doctor, you don't know him. You don't, unless you've taken the time to talk to them a bit, figure out something about them, you have no other basis to trust them other than the uniform they're wearing. Environmental situations. So there's a lot of different ways that trust is quickly given, sometimes even though it may not be understandably what we would call deserved. Those situations, I'm teaching a lot of my students, is where ABT comes in. Yep, and those that have been around Planet TJ know ABT stands for always be testing. Always, always, always be testing. Whether they're wearing a uniform, whether it's environmental, whether you guys hit it off and it feels like you've known them for 100 years, learn the subtleties of conversation. 3 Magic Questions is a great protocol for getting people to tell you their dark side, because they will tell you their dark side just as happily as they will their good side. Drill down the values and criteria. Another easy way to find out if trust is earned, deserved. So there's a lot of different things that can be done, and you cognitively have to look in. Another one, I hate to say it, family. And that's a sad one, but it still is what it is. It's amazing that I've had clients and friends, and they got screwed over more by family than they have by strangers, because of the proximity and the proximity quotient for trust. Neighbors. There's so many different ways that we as humans, like Salvo brought up, we meet people and we want to hang on to them, and we'll offer up more trust than they have earned. And when we give them that level of trust, we stop testing. And then it isn't until something happens, after something happens, a conflict or an argument or, worse, we're like, oh my gosh, I could have seen it. I should have seen it all along. Well, yeah, it was right there, but you weren't testing. You weren't looking for it. You were, and it that can be taken out of context and may sound bad, but always be testing. Even in relationships, not so much beyond the trust topic, always be testing to make sure that you're both growing equally in proper directions. Too many people trust the fact that, we're in this together, and same with business. Well, we work for the same company, so there's that level of trust. That's why there's checks and balances. Always be testing. But some people get into a position of trust, and it's pretty easy to get away with stuff once that happens. All the way down to the simplest friends, family, neighbors. Any comments on that? I know I kind of took that topic over, but yes, Sava.
A couple things. First, I also remember the time, Holly, when in my life when I was first starting the business, and I had some people who were doing detailing, cleaning cars, basically, and I would want to trust them because I needed people like that, especially now in the summertime. It's really hard to find someone who's going to clean cars, and a lot of these people are not really reliable, and some of them have their own trucks and cars. They come in, bring their equipment, and they clean cars. And so at that time, I did not have enough value of myself and my business. So I did not believe, it was just starting. I was struggling. A lot of things. At that time I had a child on the way, and my first, and so a lot of things were going on in my life. I also didn't have enough feeling of self-worth, and at that time I was letting things slide. I would think, oh well, they probably forgot. Okay, well they'll do it tomorrow. So consciously I was trying to justify, which would create resentment, and which would make me, tell them in a very harsh way to, at one point to leave, and that I don't want to do business with them anymore. So, and it's a horrible state to be in. It's a state of blame, which is actually absolutely my responsibility now when I look back, but also the state of just knowing that things through years have changed. My business has developed. I have developed personally. I think it goes together. I think that I think Tony Robbins says that the psychology of the owner is what business is really dependent on, and what defines the business. So things have changed through years, and now when I work with people, when there's like a slight mismatch in terms of what they said they will do and what they actually do, I react. I ask questions, and if I don't, if they're trying to lie to me, I say, well, I'm just gonna go so silly example, TJ will relate to this because he knows about cars. I go, they go, give me a price for these, 5 cars for today. I'm going to do them all. I said, no, we're going to go one by one because I want to make sure that, we are, you do the job right. And if you do that step, you go to the next step because, they can easily do some very, bad job on all 5 cars and say, okay, this is how much you said you're going to pay me because they know I keep my word. So he said, no, we're going to go one by one. So, you learn things through years. And then as soon as if they don't do that one right, then, okay, they get whatever I told them and then they're done. And I learned that, it's not too much money to lose. So that to me is also something that self-worth, knowing your value or value of whatever you bring to the market, whether you do sessions with people, whether you teach, whether you build the airplanes. I don't care what you do, your rate, your value. And I think then you also start to become more curious about like other person. So you go on a date and you don't think, how am I going to introduce myself? You ask questions to see if they're the right person for you, that kind of thing. And so one more quick example from my personal relationship, Holly, since you asked that question. One time I was going out with this girl for about a year, and we were not seeing each other too much. I was working, she was busy with her work, and we both have kids. So it was just that type of a relationship but after a year or something, we go out and I say, honey, I said, would you like to go to this place? We were doing some like salsa dance and she found that to be very insulting because she didn't like that place for her own reasons. And when she got insulted, I wanted to take her out and I wanted her to have a great time. I saw she got her shoes, everything ready. I said, why don't we go to this place? And she got really mad at me. And so, and then when she started to be triggered, I noticed there is some trauma, something is coming up. So I had enough resources and tools to just breathe through whatever is happening. And I started to decide in my mind, I'm going to detach from this person. But then yet I was curious enough, like you ask questions, Holly, I'm also curious and I ask questions. So I said, I'm just curious, when that came up, what did you really think about in your mind? Because I don't think it's anything related to me, sincerely. And I said, we can go to any place you like. I'm just curious, what was happening? And she started to tear up. And she said, well, she goes, 5 years ago, what happened with my kid's dad? And I said, 5 years ago, what happened with your kid's dad? And I kind of like went with my tonality up after I echo, and I just raised my eyebrows and I waited to hear because it was so interesting because I realized that people can project on you things that have nothing to do with you. And and then I look at her and she goes, you remember that time when he cheated on me and when he, did all these terrible things to me? That's when he wanted to take me to the place like that, thinking that I said, oh, okay, so that's something that you anchored with that pain, and now you're projecting that on me. In other words, you're trying to take it on me. But I said, honey, you have stuff to deal with, and I really love so many things about you. But at this moment, you're gonna have to, I'm gonna have to go my way. And if you ever work on things, if we ever cross paths again in the future, that's fine. But and again, that was coming from a place where I knew my worth, which in 5 years prior to that, I would probably start to argue with her, and the tonality and voice would go up, and we wouldn't hear each other. We would just feel really hurt both, because I really think when people are hurt, there is usually both people are hurt or both people are happy. So that's what I chose at that moment. I am sorry if it took too long.
You did not take too long. That was all good information. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else got anything to add to this? I had a squirrel drop by and And when Savo was talking, yes, there has to be a level of self-worth, self-image that needs to be addressed and protected when it comes to trust, especially with those that aren't on the, I'm going to call it superficially given, again, authoritative given, things like that. You can question trust with them pretty easily. When it comes to family and friends, that's where a lot of times we allow our feelings and our self-worth and our self-image to really have arguments that shouldn't have to be there. Just because you've known them a long time, just because they're in the family tree, no matter how close the branch is, they're still humans. Yes, Savo, feeling 100%, just because it is familiar. And you have every right to stick up for yourself. What do they say on the airplane every time? If the oxygen mask drops, you put it on yourself first, so that you have the ability to help others. And when it comes to trust with friends, family, all the above, you still have to protect yourself first. If they're the type of friends and family that deserve to be in your tribe, in the city walls, inside the castle, at the head table, they'll work through it with you. But sometimes when you call them out on their feces, you'll find out that they're another human being that doesn't deserve to be in the castle. And you can start to decide where they belong in your kingdom. Those of you that have been around Planet TJ long enough know what I mean by that metaphor. You are the king or the queen of your kingdom. And it doesn't matter how they ended up on the kingdom grounds. It's still up to you to protect the castle. Protect the throne, protect the name, protect your energy. Anybody got anything to add? Yes, Fran, please.
Well, I apologize for coming in late, but trusting self, I find that when I step into certain situations, my trust in myself has a wobble. I'm finding myself in the position where I'm in an election. This is a small internal fire brigade election, and I've been challenged, so I've actually got opposition this time, and it's really throwing my trust of myself and how I trust myself and project to others that they should trust me. And because I'm in an unfamiliar environment, or yes, I guess it's not an everyday environment, it's really rattling my groundwork. What can you help me with that, everyone? This is such a great topic for me. Thank you.
Go ahead, Simon.
One thing that I found, probably not so related to that, but when clients and myself personally in my own relationships, I noticed that the trust, if let's say in myself, because I'm a male, it comes from my dad's trust in himself. And a lot of times it's almost as important as that question when you go, what's your motivation in life? The question is, whose love did you crave the most when you were a child? If the answer is your mother, then the next question is, what did you have to become in order for your mom to provide love for you? So these two powerful questions. So in this also there is a part of modeling. Is if let's say my father had enough trust in himself, then by modeling his behavior, physiology, tonality, words, I become the person who has enough trust in himself. So but it's also contextual. So when we jump in a context where it's unfamiliar, of course we don't have enough trust, because if we did have, we wouldn't learn anything. We would be so stubborn, and then we would be bumping heads. So it's a natural process. So, and then also the same thing, I'm just going to take it to another context so that way we can connect the dots here. In relationship context, when say you go out with someone and you want that person to trust you based on how much trust you actually show, what you give, your actions, who you are indeed, that's what you want. But however, that person, if it's a man, that he's going to give you just as much trust as he trusted his mother. And in order for him to change that, he will have to deal with the trigger by himself, because you can't help there, because you're just pushing. It's almost like we say, we push your left hand with your right hand, and people start pushing and resisting. You can't push the river, you can't change him, but yet he can only decide to do that. And chances are really slim that people actually dive deep into their unconscious, because they would lose their conscious, and that just wouldn't work, because more conscious mind is active, less unconscious is. So that's why therapy is so powerful. But us here who are into this world, that's why I'm sharing this stuff there a little bit deeper, because sort of that most of the stuff come from our childhood and our genes.
Thank you. That's so brilliant. I think the thing that's thrown me off is that I've built up relationships with people over the years, and they trust me, but there's been a whole load of change, and I'm dealing with new people who don't know me, and trying to build that trust for people who don't know me at all.
Sincerely, friend, I'm just going to tell you my honest opinion, just about same thing for Holly and some other people that have been here for a while. There is something about you that just breeds that trust. So I don't know you either for a long time, but if but just by being yourself, there is just enough. There's so many facial muscles, and there's so many ways in which we express ourselves, that for me personally, it's just by you being yourself. It's very quickly, I haven't known you for a while, but that's something that's how it feels, sincerely.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm doing without facial muscles because I'm going to have to talk with these people without over the phone, so or by email. So that kind of adds another layer as well for my communication challenge. Plus, my opposition that I didn't know was coming has already stolen a march on me and already made contact. But that may be a good thing, because she's blown all her guns already, and I may be behind, but maybe I can bring the trust out. And I've probably got more flexibility in that avenue.
And
So-
that might also go back to what I said about the story with the mechanic, about having rapport, because by having rapport, it's just beyond all of that. Because when people like you, they will fill in the gaps of what's missing. As long as you can, like TJ says, echo, repeat the words, be curious. I mean, I think that's what people really want, to be validated and feeling important. And if you can make them feel that, they will forget everything else, but never the feeling.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Anybody else got anything before I add what my squirrels delivered? And I was just going to say, Jade put something in the comments that I wanted to read out quick, and then Holly will get to you. Repair, I think, is important. Yet we do not control others, and others have to desire repair. Also, some people need to be recognized for what role is fitting for them versus what role we have given someone. I thought that was an interesting point to make sure that we got to it. And Holly, you had something for Fran.
I was just a couple things. First of all, I will say to you, I completely agree that you just exude this trust energy just by being you. I mean, that is who you are. And while obviously it'll probably be more powerful when you can talk face to face with someone, I have faith that comes across in a phone call. I have faith that will come across in an email as well, because that energy is still there. That genuineness is still there. That competence is still there. So definitely put that in there. If you want to take it to the next level, I've been listening to Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference as well. So if you want to go in and just kind of do like, for instance, the objection audit is a really good example of something you could do to build trust. So go in and say, you may not know me yet, and, put out all the things that they might be thinking, label them, get them out there, and then kind of respond to them. I mean, obviously everything we already have here, the getting rapport is going to be way higher up on that list too. The matching, the mirroring, the 3 magic questions, if you could get there, the criteria and values obviously are all great. And I'm sure that's all going to be there, but I highly recommend that book as well for additional strategies.
And obviously, I completely agree with all the comments about how amazing you are, Fran. But here's a few things. Because this is an elected position, remember what I teach about who's the expert. The person who's a half a step ahead. Don't question yourself so much on your abilities, because you have the drive, the desire, and enough information to get there. The second thing is, when it comes down to stuff like this, especially in this day and age, people are getting sick of the people that have been in position, all the above. And so one thing is to, and I can't think of her name right now, so I'll leave the quote out until I can remember her name, but is the concept of diffuse the bombs, left a bang. Anything that you, as Holly mentioned, that you think may be used against you, you bring up right away on the front side. And you can tell them, hey, I just wanted to introduce myself, let you know I haven't been in this position before. I'm just very passionate about it. I've seen the flaws. I'm tired of things not being taken care of. That type of stuff. You bring those, anything that may be a landmine down the road, you diffuse it before you even get on the road. And the very fact that you are running tells me, Fran, you have enough to do it. You didn't say that you were running for the lead brain surgeon and you just started trying to figure out how to, so.
This is a re-election to a position that's not outwardly visible of what work is done. A lot of the work's done in the background, and a new person is coming in with new broom perspective, and she's extremely enthusiastic, but I'm not ready to give up my position yet.
Listen to how you just said it. This is a position that doesn't have a lot of public eyes on it. And it's easy for somebody from the outside to show up with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of ideas. I've been there. I know what it's like. I'm going to let you guys know it's not the most exciting position. You need somebody who's dedicated. That's why I'm running again. You look at what are the one thing that you can do is I know that I've talked about my protocol for hologram deck. Do three chair with your constituents and find out what questions they may ask. Find out what topics they may have issues with so that you can address them on the front side. Savo. No, good to you, Linda.
Absolutely true. Good stuff. Also, adding to that, this is what Dr. Richard Bandler does when he wants to persuade someone. And I'm sure we can all agree that he's pretty good at that. So he would tell a story that say this person, let's say everybody knows that this new person is enthusiastic, and everybody and sort of people can relate that, let's say, Fran, is you're more determined, and let's just say determined for this and so now you tell a story that's completely not related to the context. That's what he does. So he would tell a story about someone who is enthusiastic, how they ruined everything. They thought that, they blew things out of proportion when they came in. They tell everybody how things are going to be, all rainbows and butterflies. And then, of course, this happened. And then, however, in which way you put it, to where, you compare it on the other side, on the right side. And usually when you do the right side, you point at you, but obviously you can't do that over the phone. You can relate it in different ways. However, when you throw some humor in it, they say humor is a tool that shields you from stupidity. And once you add that to the story and you make that your own story, it's ever so powerful that people cannot resist that, because they can't say, "Oh, that's not funny." But you see, it's just going to make it worse. So yeah, just think about a good story to tell too.
Awesome. Linda.
Hey, Fran. I think that, what everybody has said is absolutely true. And I get I can't even begin to imagine there's anybody who knows you that wouldn't trust you completely. And I would say that if you're up against somebody, if you're competing or it's an election, or, people have to decide between two people and one of them's new and one of them's established, I think that perhaps one tack I would take is saying, listen, everybody here has been through a lot of changes. And there's been some difficult changes in all of our lives in the last couple of years. And that's not to say that, there are things left to change or things to improve. Nobody's against improvements. But having said that, and I'm trying to think of how to exactly to phrase this now, but basically along the lines of, is this really the time that you want to bring this much more change into your life and remove the stability that we have built and we have as a team right now? So I would maybe point out to those people that yes, change is a good thing, and you know that I'm always here for you, and you know that I'm always open to change and that I'm not resistant. But having said that, I also bring a certain amount of stability and continuity that I think is very important for our team just at this point in time.
Excellent point. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
I've got another question. Assuming I am successful with my election, this person ain't going to go away. So how do you harness somebody's enthusiasm in a way that's going to deflect them from giving you trouble in the future? I mean, Savo, you must have come across this with your car cleaners that, or maybe something similar. People that could come back and cause you problems in some way or another. How can you work with what they've got that's good and maybe channel it in some way?
So one of the things that I do personally is when I deal with people who don't have the highest positive intentions for me, but yet, like you said, they might come around or they are just inevitably in the surroundings. One of the things that I do energetically first is, because everything comes from imagination. You can't create something unless you see it in your head. So I imagine this create this energy shield to where nothing, it's like a permeable membrane. Only good things can go through. And so it's almost like, before I do suggestions, or let's say we were doing this thing when TJ, when you were helping me with my webinar, I was in San Diego and we were doing this thing what David Snyder calls hypno gangbang, when people go around and give you suggestions. I don't know if you guys have done that. So it's and then everybody is giving suggestion to one person. And I always, because I was facilitating, I always say to the person, any suggestion that anybody gives you that resonates with you, that you want to let in, just because, like TJ says, you're the king or queen of your own neurology, you are going to be able to let in deeply amplified 100 to 200 times deeper. But yet, if there is anything that doesn't resonate with you now, you can simply, it will simply fall off, and or it might just be a stepping stone for you. So you have a right to. And so, but here's something I noticed, friend. So because you have this good understanding of energy too, when we have fear, when we are deeply or afraid of, like, if this is going to happen in the future, we might attract exactly that. But this fear is a great trigger. And this is obviously, I'm telling you this with a lot of love and respect. If we take this fear and be like, okay, great, how do I want to feel instead? I want to feel peace. I want to feel that. Okay, if I was to feel that, how would I be? What would I do? How would I stand? How would I talk? How would I breathe? Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Savo.
And then I add to that as well. I think a lot of it depends on, what is the enthusiasm. But if it's something that's genuine and positive, there's nothing better than combining a newbie's enthusiasm and willingness to do something and your know-how of what actually needs to be done and what the priorities are. If you have a project that you can trust to this person, think of this as the best asset, the best gift the universe has ever given you, because you can go afterwards and say, I loved your enthusiasm the entire time we were running against each other, and I see a lot of potential in you. And, here's something that I've always wanted to have done. I'm wondering, can I give you this project? And, win-win situation, everybody wins. So very different, of course, than somebody who just has enthusiasm for the honor. And you have to have a very different tactic for that. But yeah.
Well, it's created a thought within me, if I'm successful with my election, of actually a completely new position that I think she would just embrace. That I may or may not have the power to create it, but I can certainly put some energy behind it because it's politically the perfect time to create this environment. This is in my fire brigade world, which is all volunteers. So, you know, people are genuine because they wouldn't do that dangerous stuff if they weren't enthusiastic. And heaven knows why we're enthusiastic to do it, but it's a very special kind of community like this, that people are there because they're special people and, you know, they have a lot to give and share, like you guys. And that's why I'm attracted to that environment and why I'm attracted to this environment. So, you know, thank you. And thank you for your creative spirit, because you've given me so many amazing ideas and the confidence. It was just that it surprised me and rattled my foundations. Okay, I've got my way forward. Thank you.
We've got a couple of comments I got to read here so that the people watching. Jade commented, yes, desensitize yourself to the outcome you most fear. Successive desensitization through acceptance. And Salva put in, if you can trust that person, are the keywords in what Holly said. And what I want to add is, if you're still going to be working with them, and make sure that you don't say anything bad about them in your campaign. In fact, what you can say is something to the effect that I'm kind of sad that we're running against each other, because I really wish that we didn't even have an election and we could simply be working together, because their enthusiasm is what I need on my team and what I've been looking for. And if by chance you guys pick me, I hope that she will be part of my team, because I have so many amazing future things that I can see for her, including a position that doesn't even exist right now, but I hope that I can make it happen, because she is the perfect candidate for that position. And now you're deflecting her energy in the best way into a position or a role she may not have even thought of.
Well, it doesn't exist yet. So I think it could. I really think it could.
But that's something that when they realize that you're saying, she is so awesome, I don't think that this position is the best role for her. I think that her amazing energy and optimism and all the things she brings to the table should absolutely be utilized in the best way possible. Now, I've been doing this role for a number of years, so I know what it is, and you guys may not realize it's not as glorious as it sounds. I'm not after it for the glory, trust me. But if you trust me one more time with this position, I would love to see her shine in her absolute 100% best scenario. Savo.
And just because, friend, you're really cool, and I want you to get that position. I'm going to tell you probably the most powerful tool that I can give you, and it's called hypnotic language. if you use hypnotic language while you're speaking, while you're winning this campaign, you might notice how much more people are going to be attracted to you, and closer you get to the goal, and with the goal will want to get closer to you. You will simply and effortlessly realize that with every single day you move closer to that goal, she is going to do and move further away. But it just means that's the right thing, because everybody is going where they're supposed to. So one of the things that you can do, friend, is you can simply use the words like trying. She's trying to do, she's trying in the conversation, and very sincerely feel that she's trying. When you talk about what you're doing, you might want to use awareness presupposition. You might say something like, and one of the things that the people have noticed about me is the improvements that I've made, and
Stability.
and then and we use also time, which is, we can say, and certainly easily after I win this campaign, one of the things that I'm gonna do is, and you start compounding this, one of the things I'm gonna do, which really implies there is more benefits, and after I win, meaning that you're certainly winning, and then you compound again with and then also using the word but to erase whatever came before, when you say, as she's, trying and doing this and that, but, and then you change it. And I mean, there's just so much that you can do with the hypnotic. Use Ericksonian cards, play with it, bring it into this context, and have a lot of fun while you're winning this context.
Yeah. And if you get any pushback comments, reply yes and that's a dance with, that's not a push against. Well, yes, and you'll notice, because I have the stability of time in this position, I already know how to deal with these things. That's why when I win, I won't have to spend that additional time learning the role. I can continue to do the job that I've been doing so well, and I can utilize the tools where they belong. And Jade just answered yes, and anchor yourself to the outcome. So if you even feel an inkling of any other feeling, you can easily get back into state. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. This has been enormously valuable. You can't imagine how valuable this is, because I've got to tackle it today and talk to people today.
One of the things I have done one time, I was having a problem, and I shared here with everybody, just like you now. And I got a lot of great advice. And so I went back on TJ's YouTube and I listened to it, and I listened to it again. And tomorrow was just a whole different day. I think I even had dreams about it.
Perfect. I'm going to do that too.
You guys just make me so happy, so proud. We're getting up on the top of the hour, and that's where I get to, as always, every time, thank you for giving up your very, very precious commodity, which is your time. I will always say it's the one thing I can't give back to you. And for you to invest it here, to be able to share with others, share your intellect, allow me to learn from you as well, that means so much to me. And for those of you watching on YouTube, those of you watching the recordings, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it more than I have the vocabulary to express. Do all the things that YouTube does, click the subscribe, share with others. Thank you, Jade, for reaching out about sharing, allowing people to come on. Invite anybody and everybody. They don't even have to know how to spell NLP. Because who is the expert? It can be anybody that has some quick little insight that we did not think about. And I invite that big time. And the world needs more of us anyway. If we can inspire one person to go, wow, that was kind of cool, and want to learn more about it and help others, yay, winning. And I can already hear outside, we got fireworks going on in the neighborhood. So for all of us in America, happy Independence Day. For our friends in the UK, when you watch this, happy Treason Day. Glad we got over that little disagreement. But again, thank you. And I look forward to seeing your beautiful smiling faces in another 7 days. So go out in the world, do good, make positive changes, and be nice to each other. Yay, and all those good things. You guys are awesome.
Good night.
Good night.